to The Writer's Dream, a forum where writers could talk about how they write their books, how they publish their books, and how they market their books. You can visit us on YouTube, and you can visit us on our Facebook page by the same title, and you can ask us questions. I'm Linda Frank, and today's guest is Lois Stern. And Lois Stern has written 2 books, Sex, Lies, and Cosmetic Surgery, and Tick-Tock, Stop the Clock. And Lois has addressed an issue which is near and dear to every woman's heart and getting nearer and dearer to every man's heart, and that's looking good and feeling good. Welcome, Lois.
Thank you, Linda. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you because this is a topic we all like to hear about. So can you tell us a little bit about sex, lies? I just love this title, Sex, Lies, and Cosmetic Surgery.
Yes, I have to tell you, picking the titles was one of the hardest things to do. Sure, I'd be happy to. Sex, Lies, and Cosmetic Surgery really was born out of my own experience with cosmetic surgery, Linda, and it was a very emotional experience for me. I didn't realize it was going to be. It isn't for every woman or man, but for many it is. And that's what I had to explore. First of all, I had to explore if this was something other women and men experienced, because it was very dramatic for me, and I didn't expect that to happen. And I started reading, and I read one book written by a psychologist. Would you believe a psychologist wrote a book about having her own cosmetic surgery, and all she said was the emotional healing took her much longer than the physical healing, and it was a positive experience. So I thought, now isn't that a curious statement to make?
Why would there be, would there have to be emotional healing after?
It's an adjustment. Maybe not healing, maybe that was not the right choice of word, but an adjustment, an emotional adjustment.
So perhaps when you look in the mirror, you see a different person.
You do. You do see a different person. And for me, I just loved what I saw. And it wasn't so much that I looked younger. It was, and I talk all about this in my book, I won't go into it now, but it was one feature that he changed, and I guess it was something that always bothered me. I knew it bothered me as a teenager, but I didn't know it bothered me as an adult. But when I saw the change, and I went to 3 different plastic surgeons, he was the only one who suggested that. And the minute he suggested it, it had to do with my chin, not my nose. And I went home, and I looked in the mirror, and I looked sideways at my profile, and I cupped my hand over here, and I said, I'll be darned. He's absolutely right. It's my chin. I always thought it was my nose. I always thought I had a very big nose, but it wasn't.
They didn't change your nose?
No, not at all.
Your nose is nice.
No, not at all. He said to me right away, your nose is fine. Leave your nose alone. Very honest, very, very honest man. So that was the biggest change for me. How that impacted on me, it's going to seem strange to say this, but the word sex, the first word in the title, it had a lot to do with me and my own sexuality. And that seems like a very strange reaction, but it was. That was one
But
of
how
them.
did it change was it your image of yourself as
Now, can you imagine if I had
an
had
object of someone's?
I felt prettier.
Okay.
I felt prettier. That's the only way I can explain it. And I can still remember after a couple of weeks after healing, getting out of the shower, wrapping a towel around myself, and I came dancing into the bedroom singing, I Feel Pretty. It was just a spontaneous reaction. And so the sex part didn't come here by accident. It's very hard for me to talk in very personal terms about
Certainly.
sexuality. As a matter of fact, I had an agent at the time, and she had an editor working with her. And she said, you know, you have talked about this book as part memoir, and yet the most important thing that you're addressing, sexuality, you haven't spoken in personal terms. And I said, oh no, that's not for me. And she said, you really have to find a way to do that. So eventually I wrote a chapter called Sexuality on the Home Front. I tried to be subtle. I got my point across very clearly. And then I had to give this whole manuscript to my husband, and I said, I want you to read this. Take it to the office and read it. I don't want to do anything to embarrass you or hurt you. So he did, and it took him about 10 days before he got back to me. And we were driving in the car one night, and all of us in the dark, and he said, about your book, I think it's fine. But, you know, I felt I needed to, because there were other things that I addressed in there that were very personal. The whole aspect of transference, and the attraction that I suddenly, enormous attraction toward this man who had changed what I felt was my life at the moment. And I wrote all about it. And because I had tried to discuss it with him, and as professional as he is, I embarrassed the heck out of him, and I could tell it. I could tell he was very professional. He looked me straight in the eye the whole time, but I saw him push the door open. And that, I thought, oh,
Never
no.
be left alone with a patient of the opposite
no,
sex.
He thinks I'm about to pounce, you know. And I went on to try to reassure him and embarrass myself even more.
I'm surprised that he really never encountered that before.
I'm sure he has. But maybe people don't talk about it so much. So I made him, there was a chapter that I wrote about you might fall in love with your plastic surgeon. And I gave it to him, and I said, I want you to read this. And the next time I saw him, I said, well, did you read that chapter? He said, yes, I did. And I said, are you all right with my publishing this? And he said, Lois, that was your experience. You're entitled to write about your experience.
Interesting.
But are you sure you want to? Because he thought I was going to get repercussions from it, that it might be embarrassing. And I said, no, I feel that this is something other women experience, not all, certainly, but other women experience, and I think it's important for them to be able to read this.
Well, I think, I know that psychologists experience this with their
Absolutely.
female patients, males with
Absolutely.
females, and vice
Right.
versa. Because I think it's the whole idea of this is a person who, at some point in there, before you become completely healed or progress to the next level, if you will, you feel that this person has power over you, but their power is making you better. And so
I never thought of it in terms of power, Linda. That's an interesting, I have to think about that.
I think sex and power kind of, you know.
Yeah, maybe. To me, it was more a person who knows you so well and has had a positive impact on your life. I don't know about the power part.
But he had the power to change you
Yes.
in that way.
Yeah, that's true. So you do, I hadn't thought of it in terms of power.
I'm sure it's complex.
So I have 2 chapters in here. One is utter humiliation, which is that day, word for word, what happened when I spoke to him. It didn't, I mean, I could, that's
Spoke to him
indelible.
about this, the sexuality.
Yeah, no, about the transference and how. And I can remember it like it happened yesterday, even though it's over 12 years ago. When I sat at the computer to write it, there were tears coming down my cheeks. That's how painful it was, and yet I felt I needed to say it. And then the second chapter, You May Fall in Love with Your Plastic Surgeon, where I really take the plastic surgeon also through what you can say to the patient, like me, who says that. Because I think he was very kind, but he didn't answer me. I went home and I called an ex-colleague who was a psychologist on our staff, and I said, Lorraine, I need to talk to you right away. And she said, okay, come on, let's meet for lunch. And she's the one who really explained what was happening. That made me feel better.
Sure, yeah. Now, is this plastic surgeon the one who wrote the chapter in the book?
In this book?
In the introduction?
No. Oh, the man who wrote, that's an interesting question, Linda. The man who wrote the foreword, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
The foreword in the book. His name is Dr. David Sarwer. He is he is a psychologist. He's not a plastic surgeon. And actually, he's head of I have to look at that, associate professor of psychology at the Department of Psychiatry and Surgery at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. Okay. And that was an interesting thing, too. How I reached him was I started doing research. And I was at the medical school library at Stony Brook. I kept making trips out there and doing my research, and this one name kept popping up in the literature. And so I thought, gee, this is a very good person to get in touch with. So I did. You know, with Google, you can find just about anybody. And I called and I left a message and I told him what I was doing. And I wondered if he would be willing to review some of my research. So he called back, and my message says, please say your number slowly and clearly, because he talks a mile a minute. And he called back, and it was so funny the way he gave that number digit by digit. And so we talked, and he said, Lois, I would really have to see your manuscript before I could go any further.
Sure.
And I appreciated that, and I said, no problem at all. I sent it to him. And within 2 weeks, he was back to me, and he said, Lois, I would be, because I had asked if he would be interested in writing the foreword. He said, I would be pleased to write the foreword for your book. So that was like one nice,
That's wonderful.
One nice credential, and he wrote a beautiful intro.
Well,
Then,
you have said that your book is a combination of research, interviewing,
right,
and memoir.
right, that's right.
So that's pretty
Yeah.
comprehensive.
Then I had gotten in touch, this was because I was writing an article for a Long Island Woman, and the article was on beauty treatments. And I called the American Society for Aesthetic Plastic Surgery. You always know to go to the top and say, I am doing an article and I would like to speak to somebody who's highly credentialed. And they put me in touch with a man from the Midwest called Dr. Leo McCafferty. He has since become the president of their association, by the way, but at that time he was not. And he was so respectful when he called, and is this a convenient time for you, you know, and he spoke, we got along so well, we spoke for about 40 minutes. And then at the end of the conversation, I said, you know, I'm writing a book about cosmetic surgery right now. He said, you are? I'm very interested. Tell me about it. So I said, sit down before I tell you the title. So I told him the title, and he was very quiet. And he said, you know, Lois, I've always realized that this can be an emotional experience for women. I'd like to understand that better. Do you think you could send me your manuscript?
Wow.
So I said, I would be so pleased to do that. If you like it, I'm not putting you on the spot, but if you like it, would you be willing to write a blurb for the back cover? So he called me in a very short time and he said, Lois, this is a good book, like that.
Read the blurb.
Let me read his, can I read
Yes,
his
please.
little blurb? Do not be misled by the title. This is a very thoughtful and insightful book, exploring the common and perhaps not so common emotions involved with the plastic surgery experience. A most informative guidebook for both before and after cosmetic surgery. I like that. I thought
You
did
can't really say too much more than that. Now, I know you have an excerpt from the book that you
Right.
want to read. Would you
Yeah.
like to read that now?
Sure. Thing was, this wasn't something I just had myself focused on, oh, Lois, you're going to get cosmetic surgery. I had a medical problem that of an eye that closed as a result of getting shingles. It hit the
Right,
eye.
right.
And so I was going to a plastic surgeon to see about lifting that eyelid. And as I started going to speak to different people, I started looking at brochures in the office, and I thought, gee, while I'm under anesthesia, maybe I should do a little more, you know, like remodeling the kitchen and do the whole thing. So that's
yes.
what started me on the search. But I had a lot of ambivalent feelings. It wasn't something that was ever part of my mindset at all.
You know, I have some days when I think that I should have the entire face redone, and then I say, no, why don't we just age gracefully? And,
So
yeah,
there's the ambivalence
it is,
to it, right?
absolutely.
Absolutely. So I went for 3 consultations. It was the third one who was the surgeon I picked. And I just start out by saying on the drive home, after the last of 3 consultations, I kept thinking, me? Is this really me? To help rid myself of ambivalences, I began to invent some imaginary conversations. The first one was with my mom about what she would say now if only she could speak with her former eloquence. You know how we always go back to our parents and the messages they
yes.
give us. Lois, why are you even entertaining such thoughts? Is it so important to you that you're even willing to have surgery just to get rid of a few wrinkles? I think you look lovely, just the way you are. You know, I've always had such respect for your judgment. You're such an intelligent person, so level-headed that I'm really surprised you're thinking this way now. This doesn't even sound like something you would do. If you want my advice, forget it. Remember, sometimes when you look for trouble, trouble finds you. Then my father's was all focused on, why are you spending this money for such a, you could put this aside for your children, your grandchildren's college fund, not for that. So those were the kinds of ambivalent feelings.
Well, I
that
know what my
had.
mother would have said. My mother would have said, Linda, pretty is as
pretty
pretty does.
And isn't that true? So Linda, I did this book in 2 editions. One is the straight text. One is with, as you can see, a CD inside that has a lot of different forms and checklists and things to help somebody who's really ready to go in for surgery, before and after.
Well, I think the wonderful aspect of this book is the emotional side,
Yes.
because I think of people who've been born with a facial deformity and go through the plastic surgery, and of course this makes them look so much better, but they too have to come to grips with, I've seen shows on this, they have to come to grips with the new face.
Yes.
And I think any change that you make,
Yeah.
you know your body.
Inner or outer.
That's very, the inner or outer, that's very true. Your second book is Tick Tock, Stop the Clock.
Yes.
And what's the difference between the, I mean, they both deal with being pretty.
Yes. This one, subtitled Getting Pretty on Your Lunch Hour. And that's basically what it is. Very different. It's not emotional. It's clinical. How I got to it was that every time I did a presentation, Linda, at a bookstore or some kind of an event, there'd be somebody in that audience raising their hand and saying, well, could you tell us about some of the less invasive procedures? And I realized there was
For us
a real interest in this, and yet I was not the expert to
Mm-hmm.
answer those questions, and I felt that they should be answered. So what did I do? I made myself a list of what topics I would like to have covered. And then I started, next to that first column, I put down, now, who can I use? Do I know any experts that I can use for those different topics? Okay. My plastic surgeon, Dr. Alan Kisner, well, I knew he's been on the Innovative Procedures Committee of the ASAPS. I knew that I could get him to write something about the future. But I needed a lot of experts. I asked the Fraxel representative, because we were talking one day, and she said, I have the perfect dermatologist for you. He's out in California. And she gave me his name. Oh, that was when I was writing the magazine article. So I already had a relationship with him, Dr. Vic Narraker, wonderful, wonderful guy. So I had a dermatologist. I knew of Dr. Larry Bass, who's with Cornell Medical, and he's head of the laser department and teaches there. So I contacted him. Now, all these people, either they knew me already, or I had this credential of a book, and Dr. Bass said, oh, yes, I've heard about that. So, you know, they're more amenable to do working with me. Some of them I had no idea. I wanted a chapter on cosmetic dentistry. I called the National Association of Cosmetic Dentistry, and I said, you know, I'm writing this book. I need somebody who's not only an expert, but also someone with a little personality. And they said, oh, we have the perfect person for you. He was our past president. He walks around town. He's in Connecticut in a Hawaiian shirt. And he was full of personality. So that's the way I went about it. And the advice I'd give anybody writing nonfiction who's looking for experts, don't be afraid to ask.
Yes, I think everybody would be interested in putting their 2 cents. And this is such a growing field and so much more acceptable
Right.
I mean, it used to be, I can remember gatherings of women where you would go, oh, she's had work
Right,
done.
exactly.
And now it's, ooh, she's had
Yeah,
work
that's
done.
right. Isn't that the truth? Yes. Yeah, and I think I'm in neither place. I'm not, ooh, or I'm not,
But now you know where to look for the scars.
No.
No, not really. So, did you want to read something
Do you
from
want me
this
to
book?
read
Yes,
a little bit?
I
Because this
would.
balances my feelings a lot. I write, nonetheless, I have concerns that I talk about beauty, first of all, and that it does make you feel better. Not that I feel I'm beautiful, but wherever you were, if you have improvement, it makes you feel better.
Sure.
So nonetheless, I have concerns that we not go overboard, tipping the scale in our quest for beauty, as I firmly believe that we need to strive for balance in our lives. Please don't dismiss inner beauty as a vestige from a bygone era. I have seen too many faces sparkle simply from exuding a joyous attitude, an enthusiasm for life, to negate our need to hone the inner spirit as well as its outward shell. To be our best, we need to continually work to bring the beauty of our inner and outer selves into balance. Keep in mind the words of Rosalind Russell. Taking joy in living is a woman's best cosmetic. And I wish you all a beautiful life in all respects.
That's beautiful. I would like to know something about the various techniques that covers. I know it's probably all I know about non-invasive is facial peels.
Oh, right, okay. Yes, if you look on the back cover, I have it all. And if you go to my website, TikTok Stop the Clock, unfortunately you can't see them all. Because there are 13 of them, and we couldn't focus on all of them. But if you go there and click on the microphone next to each face, you have to go up.
Can we scroll up?
We can. I don't know why it went down. Oh, here.
Okay, go ahead. There you go. There you go.
Okay, that's some of them.
All
They
right.
could go even up higher. Okay.
There we go.
Very good. You see there's a little microphone next to each
Yes.
one. If you click on that microphone, you'll hear my voice, and I do a little introduction to each one. So I tell about them and what their expertise is. But it goes from dermatology to minimally invasive surgery.
What is minimally
Well,
invasive
all right,
surgery?
it could be laser treatments. It could be intense
And
post-life.
laser does what?
Well,
Peels off?
It goes deeper. Today, they have something wonderful that's called the erbium laser. They have the CO2 laser. They are, when Fraxel developed these fractionated lasers, the best way I can describe it, Linda, is if you look at a picture on the computer, and they talk in terms of pixels, this is like pixels of your skin. The laser goes deep into the dermis of channels of your skin, but leaves surrounding skin untouched, so that it's having the same effect, but without all that downtime. Now, the CO2 used to be, with the ablative, which is what they did years ago, women would be oozing for months.
Yes,
the
my
healing.
father had to have that for skin cancer.
Okay.
It was awful.
It was a terribly hard procedure to recover from. Now, it's maybe a week to 10 days.
Oh, that's great.
And, you'll turn red, you'll turn striped, you'll turn dark, and then it peels off. And within 5 days, you can be
gorgeous.
out and fine, and then it keeps getting better. But you need a couple of treatments. It doesn't just happen with one. So that was that. I told you about one woman who does product development under private label, Madeline Arena, and she did a chapter of this book just on products and what to look for in ingredients and what she gave.
That's important.
She gave different case studies of women with different problem skin, and they were fiction, those case studies, but they based on obviously true life cases. And she talked about how you would treat that, how skincare products, how the dermatologist would treat it, how the esthetician would go about treating it. So
I think that's important because I think most women will go for products, moisturizers and whatnot, but
Right.
they don't know They don't know what to look for on the label, what's
Exactly.
important. What they
Exactly.
generally end up doing is buying a very expensive product because
That's right.
they feel that
Expensive.
they're going to get a better
That's right,
a
expensive is
better
gonna do
deal.
wonders,
Sure.
right?
Well,
Yeah.
I also think that they think that possibly that company has better
Research.
better research and also a better conscience about it. Maybe we'll put it
maybe.
that way. But I'm not sure. So. So that your website actually is a good marketing tool then?
It is a good marketing tool, and if you went up to the top of the screen, I have a lot of articles. I have topics, and you click on it, and you can read articles that I've written. Oopie, it does go off,
There we
doesn't
go.
it?
Yes, it does. Okay,
Okay.
there it
So-
is. Okay, you want to go to the
Okay.
top? Yeah, this
Sure.
way.
Keep going. You see that there? And I'll keep working on that. I haven't done it in
that's
a
it.
while because I've been busy with other things.
So
But
the-
anyone that's underlined, you can click on and you can see the article.
No, but I
Yeah.
think that's, someone who's thinking about it. I think that's the first step, is to do the research. And your book is wonderful because you've done the research, you have the interviews with people, and then you have, your own dealing with the emotional issues.
Right.
Because I've thought about doing something, and then I think to myself, I'm not really sure I want to do that because I would change my face. And even if I change it for the better, I'm not sure that I would like it.
Just look back, after one of my closest friends, she was the first one I dared to go out with after the surgery. That's not this book, but the other one. And oh, she was kissing me and hugging me. She was so thrilled. And I said, Harriet, do you really see such a difference? She said, Lois, you go back to your photo albums from 20 years ago. That's what you look like. I don't look like that anymore, but that's the way I looked.
No, that's
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
That's so
So
wonderful.
that
So
would
this is an inspiring pair of books, I
It
think,
is.
for any man or woman who's looking into the idea of looking
Yeah.
better, feeling better,
Yeah.
and feeling happy. And I agree with you. I think when you look better, you are
You do
happier.
you feel good. You know a day when you're, it's funny, the man who did the chapter on hair restoration, that's it.
And hair is a big thing.
Yeah.
Just watch television, and you know what's
That's right.
important.
He said, I see them come out afterwards with a kick in their step. That's the way he described it.
Very good. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Lois.
Linda,
that
it
was
was a
really
pleasure.
lovely.
That was a pleasure. Thank you.